UCY family, please join me in prayer. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on this place. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable to you, O Lord, our rock and redeemer. Amen. I have to admit, it's very strange to be here without all of you right here. When I look out at the pews of the chapel, I can see every one of you. I see the deacons sitting in their particular spots. I see the liturgical ministries group members scattered in a similar pattern. I see our choir, and I can almost hear them warming up in the morning. As I gaze into this seemingly empty chapel, I can see our adults and our students, the regulars and the once-a-semesterers. I can see the folks who slip in late just after the prelude, and those that scoot out early so you don't have to worry about greeting too many people. And I can see the ones who are morning people looking for conversation when it's bright and early, and those more like me who do much better with a greeting after church. Family, I can see you here, and I know that we are together. I can imagine you at home joining for worship from the comfort of your bed, maybe, or at your dining room table, or maybe on your porch, soaking in some sunshine as you're streaming on your phone. We're going to find new ways to be together in the coming weeks. I know it. And the church across the centuries has known that it's not the building, it's not this place, these walls that make the church. Our faith is not limited by walls or brick or mortar. For our God is not limited by space or place or time or anything under all of heaven. The prophets have known this for centuries, as they sing and write of finding God in the wind and the light, of seeing God on mountaintops, of hearing from God as a still, small voice. And Jesus knows this too. In fact, much of his ministry involved breaking open our assumptions of where and when and how God moves and how God heals in our world. Today's gospel story is no different. In it, a man who is blind is healed with mud, saliva, and water. Miraculously, but also somehow very simply, Christ heals this man literally with dirt and spit. And the man's eyes and the understanding of all those around him in the story are forever changed. It's tempting, I think, to get caught up in the theology surrounding this simple, miraculous healing. Both the disciples and the Pharisees, if you keep reading, succumb to this temptation. They get stuck worrying about why Jesus healed this man, why he healed the man on the Sabbath day, and why the man was born blind in the first place. I found myself this week getting stuck. I've been listening to the news constantly, maybe like some of you. My hands have been glued to my phone, scrolling through endless Facebook news feeds, Instagram posts, and news articles. Even my podcasts have all been focused on the coronavirus, all but when I listen to my Harry Potter audiobook tape, which is my comfort place right now. I've been so stuck, focusing on all the bad news around me, that I sometimes feel like I'm missing the forest for the trees. I've gotten so fixated on everything that's changed, I've forgotten also what's remained the same. I was reminded of this yesterday when working on this sermon. I was typing away, my back crunched over my laptop, my fingers flying across the keys, and suddenly some big, bright, beautiful bubbles, literal bubbles, just floated by my window. I'm not kidding you, just out of the blue, I looked up and there they were, floating along, these little orbs of color and joy and soap. I got up and opened the shades of the window that is to my right, the window that I hadn't even bothered to let the sunlight in on, to find my next door neighbors. Neighbors I'd talked to maybe 6 months ago when we moved in, but haven't really talked to since. And there their children were playing in the sun and the grass, their bubble maker blasting. At first I wanted to laugh. What a funny thing to think that over here I was, panic listening to NPR, adding to my grocery list all the things I forgot in what I hoped would be my last trip to the store, and writing this sermon. And yet there are rainbow bubbles, refracting the light and color all around them, bringing joy through this very simple solution of soap and water. What have you maybe noticed as surprise moments of joy these past couple of days? Maybe new flowers have popped up on your block. Maybe a friend from primary school who you haven't connected with in years suddenly shot you a text or called you to just see how you're doing and where you're living in the world right now. Maybe your postman was blasting the Beach Boys while delivering your census. Friends, our God is a God of new and abundant life every day, every morning, every moment. Jesus spent most of his ministry multiplying little simplicities into huge moments of grace and life. And God, in case we were apt to miss the message, which we often are, wanted to make it so clear that nothing could limit God's ability to bring new life and new hope, even and especially in the darkest of times, that God sent Christ to remind us that even the darkness and seeming finality of death will never have the final word. In this time of upheaval, when we miss our friends and worry about our loved ones and get stuck in our anxieties, I invite all of us to step back and think about the simple stuff. Our church has never been the house of God because of this space, because of these pews, because of this beautiful architecture or gorgeous organ. No, our church has been Christ's body in the world because of our deep commitment to imperfectly but earnestly seeking to love God, to love our neighbors, and to somehow be loved in the process. And Yale has never been Yale because of all the thrills and frills of this campus. Yes, we miss being able to get pizza up at Franklin. We miss being able to learn the art of bookbinding in Silliman, to run into Handsome Dan over on cross campus, to hunker down in Bass for a late night paper writing session. We miss all of these things. But this also is not what makes Yale Yale. It's you. It's you who are here today too. The people, the students, the staff, the faculty, the alumni, the visitors, the family members who are living through your Yale experience. It's you and your ideas and your passions and your interests and your willingness to be curious and your desire to make the world a better place that makes Yale Yale. And when Jesus has done his miracles, it's not usually been with bright flashes of light and color and sound and a voice coming from the heavens, though we know sometimes this is how he does it. No, the goodness of God is not bound up in what is large and grand and mighty. It's in the simplicities of life, like mud, like spit, like hearing from a loved one that they're thinking about you, like talking to your neighbor from across the lawn to tell them you're here if they need anything, like being surprised by bubbles and spring. And it's like gathering here, even though we're not physically together, to be fed, to worship God, and to go forth and live into Christ's invitation to be his body in the world. I'm not sure what the coming weeks will have in store for us, but I do know that we are going to weather it together. So please reach out anytime to myself, to Ian, to Claire, to Torianto, to one another. Tell us how you're doing. Tell us what you're dreaming about. Tell us what new things God is planting and healing and revealing in your lives. And tell us where it hurts, or when you're stuck, or feeling scared, or feeling isolated, or just like you need some human contact. For even though everything might look like it's different now, a lot of it is also very the same. And Christ's love and hope and joy will rise with the sun every single morning. Thanks be to God.